What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Circles and Squares News Report for Monday, February 14th, 2022. A happy Valentine's Day for all our listeners. I'm James, and that's Katie, and of course, that makes this the Circles and Squares PlayStation podcast. What's up, Kate? How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. If everyone's watching on video, still clearly in the process of moving. I don't know if I'm going to keep my big cardboard box there.
Yeah, I
But
was thinking
we'll
it looks
see.
okay. It looks okay. You know,
Yeah,
you can
it
play
looks
around with it.
okay, but just moving around other places. Maybe put it in the bedroom might be nicer there. We'll see. So
Yeah, you could like put it on the roof above your bed so that when you're
yeah,
sleeping, you can kind of look up and remember how much fun you had moving all the
right.
boxes and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm still enjoying that. So, things are busy over here, but they're
Yeah, well,
good.
for non-video listeners, the update on my move is that I now have this cover on my plug, which you can see beside me. So that was open before. I mean, that's an
Yeah, it's
update.
a really nice plug
Yeah,
cover.
matches well.
So, good choice.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, listeners are like, okay, and I'm about to click off of this podcast now. Don't worry, we're going to talk about some games. Okay, this is the Circles and Squares News Report. Every other week we come together and talk about all the games, news in PlayStation and around the gaming sphere as well. So we're going to get into that in just a sec. We always start off the show with the PlayStation news that has happened over the last few weeks, and my God, we have some big stuff to talk about. And for the out of town news later on in the second half, we will be talking about the Nintendo Direct that just happened a couple of days ago. So if you're interested in the Nintendo stuff, you can click the timestamp just in the notes of the show if you don't want to hear us talk about the PlayStation Bungie acquisition. I know it's a little bit of old news, but hey, our schedule didn't line up so well to talk about it last time, so that's what we're starting off with today. Let's just get into our first story, Kate, and that is story number one for today, which is that Sony bought Bungie, and this is, of course, in the wake of Microsoft buying Activision and all those other acquisitions that they've made. So just to start us off on this conversation, I guess, with Bungie, I just have a quick article from Brendan Sinclair over on gamesindustry.biz, which I think is a good jumping off point to a bit of a conversation. So stick with me for a sec. I'm just going to read through this. And then we'll have a chat, okay? And once again, yeah, this is older news. It is the 14th. This came out on like the end of January, but yeah, podcast schedules. So as of January 31st, this is the article. Sony Interactive Entertainment today announced a deal to acquire Bungie for $3.6 billion, the latest in a string of big ticket consolidation deals in the games industry. After the deal closes, Bungie will be a, quote, independent subsidiary of Sony Interactive Entertainment, run by a board of directors, and current CEO Pete Parsons, who is the CEO of Bungie, will maintain his management position with the studio. Sony has said that Bungie will remain a multi-platform studio with the, quote, option to self-publish and reach players wherever they choose to play. So at present, the studio is working on and maintaining Destiny 2, expanding the Destiny franchise, and working on a new IP. And Jim Ryan had a quote also saying that we have a strong partnership with Bungie since the inception of the Destiny franchise. I couldn't be more thrilled to officially welcome this studio to the PlayStation family. And then they go on and have a few other quotes basically from Bungie just saying that, Bungie and SIE both have the belief that worlds are only the beginning of their IP, like games. They want to basically get into other multimedia projects, and that's why they wanted to partner with Sony, being a multimedia entertainment company with Sony Pictures and everything else they do. So again, in January we had Take-Two bought Zynga for $12.7 billion. Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard, clearly for a much bigger deal than this. It's $68.7 billion, which is just insane. But I mean, let's not laugh at the fact this is still $3.6 billion for Sony to buy Bungie. Obviously, that comes with the big hit Destiny, which is something you've recently got into. So I'm especially interested to hear what you have to say. So maybe I'll shut up and now that we've set the table. And yeah, what are your thoughts on Sony buying Bungie?
I mean, it was a surprise. When I first saw that, I thought it was a joke because Bungie's just such a unexpected studio to have been purchased, especially by Sony. So, yeah, I know everyone was really concerned. All my Destiny friends were like, "Oh God, does this mean it's gonna disappear?" Because we play on PC.
Right.
We don't play it on console. So we all play on PC, and everyone's like, "Ooh, I don't want PlayStation specific content," because I guess that was a thing in the past. With
I think they
Destiny,
had some. Well, Destiny originally, the first one launched with the PS4 pretty much, and that's when they
yeah.
kind of had that partnership with Sony that they're talking about. Is like my white PS4 is the Destiny edition. Like
Yeah.
I bought that, so I mean that was a launch one. So yeah, it's been a long standing
Yeah,
partnership.
so and I guess that at some point they had some console exclusive, um, material. I don't know exactly what it was. I don't know if it was a game mode or just some guns or to what extent the exclusivity went, but that was a factor, and I know a lot of people were really upset about it because as an online only game and kind of one of those service model style games, it does really suck to feel like you're gated off from content, so I totally understand the initial concern. But I think both Bungie and Sony have done a good job of kind of making me feel a lot more comfortable about that and really emphasizing that at least for Destiny, who knows about their new IPs, but at least for Destiny, like it is staying on all platforms. It doesn't seem like they're gonna really take advantage of it being like a Sony property in that aspect. And so now it's kind of turned to excitement of like, oh god my god, Bungie's gonna have some money. Like we can
Oh, they have
actually do
lots of money
stuff.
already, I'm sure, but definitely
Um
not as much as being part of
yeah, but now
Sony.
they've
That's
got
for sure.
some nice Sony money that hopefully they can throw at stuff. Um, yeah, they're making some big changes. I know, like, Witch Queen, the new expansion comes out soon, so it'll be interesting to see, like, what kind of stuff gets added in the future.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
if anything Sony related, I would love to see some, like, Sony inspired stuff. Like, we got the collection or the anniversary, like, recently, 30 years, and so we got, like, a bunch of Halo inspired stuff, and I would love
Yeah,
to see
yeah.
some, like, Sony inspired stuff. Like, I would love to get, like, I don't know, HMS sword in Destiny or something, like, how
It
fun would that be?
would be cool.
Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
I don't expect it to change, maybe this is naive of me, but I don't expect it to change the game too much aside from maybe having some extra resources, which will hopefully only be positive. And I really want to see some kind of like movie and or show series come from Destiny because as I've talked around the podcast before, my big complaint with Destiny is that they don't do a good job of integrating new players and they don't do a good job of sharing the story and the world naturally in the game as you're playing. And it's just because it's gotten so muddied over time with content being added and then taken out
Well,
and
especially
they
you joining in late too. Like it's not
yeah,
like you would have
exactly.
experienced from the beginning of playing whenever the game
Exactly.
launched.
And so, like, I know the initial, like, quest line you did when you first started Destiny 2 is not in the game anymore, so it just kind of throws you into the middle of it now, and you sort of really need someone kind to help you navigate, and I think something like a movie or a show would be able to take advantage of how incredibly cool the writing in the world is because it does exist in the game, like, Destiny is a really interesting universe, and there's a lot of neat areas that they could go into and kind of explore in that sort of medium. And it would be a lot, I think, easier to get into, and then also it would be nice to watch and then get into the game, and then you immediately have that to reference.
Yeah, I'm with you too. Like I played the first Destiny, like the campaign through. I never really got into any of the online stuff, or Destiny 2 I haven't really touched, but like it is a
Mhm.
cool world. Some of the tech they have, like the way the characters move around, like all the stuff that goes on, like it seems like it's cool, but I had no idea what was going on with the story. So you're right, like if there was a TV show and it was made with a high level of quality and all that, I could definitely see
Mhm.
it being like people praise a lot of the Star Wars properties that are not
Yeah.
the movies, right? And so I could see it being something akin to that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's an interesting acquisition. I mean, a different way for me is like I agree with you. I don't think they're going to take. I mean, they said Destiny's staying on PlayStation, and I don't think they're going to have the type of like, oh, there's a new expansion pack, but it's only for PlayStation now, because I think they've just got such a large Destiny player base, and there's so many people, so much goodwill, right? And I just think
Mhm.
that it would look like such a terrible PR move to be like, okay, we own this
Yeah.
now, like goodbye. It's like with the same thing
Bye-bye.
with Xbox is saying that Call of Duty for the foreseeable future staying on PlayStation as well for the same
Mhm.
reasons. I think where it gets interesting is twofold. It's number one is what's the next IP they're working on, because there's almost no way that that's going to be on Xbox at very
Yeah.
least. That's probably going to be PlayStation, PC, like we've seen going forward. Like what is that IP? Sony's really investing in the future of what they believe Bungie can make, not like Destiny as an exclusive.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
The other facet of it is how much Bungie has an awareness of how to make a live service game like Destiny, which is arguably the most successful live service game right now. Like, there's a huge player base, people returning, there's all kinds of raids and drops. And if you look at Sony's library, I think like that's the one area they kind of struggle in quite a bit. Like, their first party stuff is usually cinematic single player stuff, and then when we've seen them dabble in something like live service, we get like Destruction All Stars, which is maybe a cherry picked example of something that's not so great, but it's nowhere near the quality of something like Destiny. And so bringing that team on and just sharing their expertise as far as like, hey, this is how you manage a live service game. You know, what does that mean for other IP in the future? If Naughty Dog, for example, comes to them and is like, hey, you know what, we want to get a second team of ours making a live service game. What can you on Bungie teach us about how to do this properly? So I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think it's going to strengthen their portfolio of like studios available to what they can do.
You make a valuable point, because you're right. Like, if you're not into story-driven, character-driven single-player RPGs, then that eliminates a lot of the reason to prioritize getting a PlayStation. And like, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because that's, you know, like arguably the biggest type of game, or at least like the most common kind of game. And those are the kind of games that people will buy consoles for. But it doesn't, it's like never a bad thing to just have more variety.
Well, exactly,
And
right?
yeah. And I think they also don't do tons of like shooters, or at least like they're not known for that kind of
Yeah,
thing as
not
well. And
really.
like Destiny or Bungie's also exceptional at that kind of a thing. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting to
it's
see. Like, I wonder if the next IP they're working on is like, hey, it's another shooter like with some similarities to Destiny, but this will be the PlayStation one, and then Bungie will continue to make Destiny as well for like the larger world. Who's to say? It's cool though. I mean, the whole corporate consolidation part of all these purchases is a little concerning. Like, I don't know if that's a great thing long term. Like, it's fine for me as someone that has a PlayStation. It's fine. Like, I have the Xbox. Luckily, I'm in that place. Like, it's almost good for me in a way. Like, with these things kind of getting aligned, but at the same time, in the long term, I feel like that's a really dangerous thing to be happening in some ways. And you just hope it doesn't turn into like literally every game company is either owned by, you know, one of three companies basically, and you're just kind of stuck.
Yeah, it is a very slippery slope that has been opened, and you gotta hope it's, you know, there's good things too, right? It's like, oh, Bungie's able to do more with their franchises and, you know, utilize that extra money and create things they wouldn't have been able to on their own, and maybe that leads to something fantastic we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. But it definitely has that era or that margin of concern for sure, and it's like, you know, who's kind of next? And I don't like that it's just it's transitioning from decisions of like, this makes sense to both companies, to like, well, who are we going to swoop in and steal next?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that is just not consumer friendly.
yeah.
um
I feel like we're not maybe there yet. Like, this partnership,
mhm,
from what they're saying in the quotes, it does make sense. Like, what Bungie's looking for is basically funding to turn Destiny into multimedia projects. And, you
mhm.
know, Sony can do that. And I think it makes sense.
Yeah,
But you're right.
like
Like,
Destiny
it,
went to Shark Tank and Sony was the one that was like, here's the money. We
yeah,
got
yeah,
you.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, I also don't think this was like a huge reflex to them, to Activision Blizzard getting bought, because these deals take months and months
Well,
of
yeah.
planning and contractual obligations. Like, this has been cooking for a long time.
Exactly, that's the thing, right? Like, it's easy for people to be like, "Oh, well, you know, they're just freaking out and they bought the Microsoft property because you know, they did Halo," and it's like, yeah, it's kind of funny that it works out coincidentally that way, but, like, yeah, obviously these things are in negotiation for a very long time, and they're not just, like, firing back at each
Hmm.
other
Hmm.
necessarily.
Well, at least not yet. I mean, going
At least
forward
not
now, it's
yet.
kind of might be
I
like
know,
that.
just
Um,
whoever buys Supergiant, just be kind to them,
oh my
okay?
God,
We love
just Supergiant,
Supergiant.
just don't sell yourself, man.
Don't sell
Just stay
yourself.
stay indie, okay? Okay, yeah. Anyway, that was very interesting. I'm sure we'll have a lot more details to talk about on the show going forward with this stuff. But let's move to our next episode, or our next news episode topic thing we have to talk about, because we have a lot to go over. We had a state of play happen a few days ago about Gran Turismo 7, a game which, out of the entire library of like PlayStation exclusive games, I would probably think that we would both unanimously have this ranked at like, this is a great game, but it's zero interest for either of us whatsoever to like actually play it and get into it. So the state of play happened, and to be fair, like this, I think this is a pretty good presentation. It was maybe a little long in terms of like, you know, what they were showing. Some of those montages of the driving and whatnot, where they went on seemingly forever. But I think they did a good job of showing like, hey, you know, these are all the options you have as far as tuning your car and whatnot. Again, not for me, not for you, but for people who are tuning in about Gran Turismo, I think they're, you know, those are the kind of things they're looking for. Yeah, it was a pretty decent presentation, I think, for Gran Turismo fans. The game looks genuinely quite amazing if you're a driving fan.
Yeah, car games always do. That's always the one thing that's nice about looking at car games is like I enjoy watching the presentations just because of like the tracks that they're driving around in different countries and seeing those different environments. That's what I enjoy when I watch a car game trailer. I also think this one's kinda cute. It's like done like a menu, like you go to the Turismo cafe to upgrade your car, and I don't know if car people are gonna like that because it's sort of a weird departure from, like, going to the
you
body shop or whatever
Yeah, or
you'd
like a
normally go
festival,
to.
like
Yeah.
Horizon does a festival. I was just checking a little bit of Horizon. You have like a car festival going on, and there's like people are so it's very different. Yeah, cafe.
Mhm, but yeah, you go to the cafe and you're like, "Oh, eggs, tea, and a new muffler for my car, please." I don't know, I just think card games are weird and interesting in certain ways like that, like, just some of the decisions that they make, but, I mean, that's my takeaway, so that should probably, tell you all you need to know about how I feel about Gran Turismo.
Yeah, the I don't know if you watched the whole presentation, but some of the stuff around like the way it puts together your replays with music and times out like different
Mhm.
camera angles with you know what happens in the song. I feel like that's probably not new to Gran Turismo, and we sound like big novices for pointing that out, this type of stuff. But to me, that's a cool feature. And if I was
But
looking to do a really nice race and maybe share it with some friends, like that's an interesting way to do it.
yeah, there's a lot of, like, social media aspect to this game because then they showed off that really insane photo mode where you have,
Yeah.
like I've never seen so many customization options in a photo mode before, but, like, basically, it's like, this is Photoshop on your Gran Turismo, and, like, here's a free subscription to it, and make some cool
Straight
car
up, straight
pictures.
up.
Um, yeah, I don't know if that's yeah, I don't know how new that is to the franchise, but it's certainly a very visually stunning game. Um,
Yeah, it is. And the environment, like the way the weather changes and
yeah.
kind of goes around, that's the kind of thing that's like, man, that's cool tech. I remember I would like to see that implemented in other games that are not driving games, and maybe they can again share that among the PlayStation studios and stuff and whatever. But anyway, I just hope driving fans like this one because it looks like it's
Mhm.
shaping up to be quite a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Another exclusive coming to the console too, which is always great from first party stuff to see them support it. And yeah, hopefully the reviews are good. And let's move on to our next news story, which is another gameplay demonstration that we got to see, except this one a little bit more applicable for you and I. So let's take it away. I know you're really hyped for Ghostwire Tokyo, Kate. So why don't you break it down? What did we see? How interested are you? And are you going to be getting Ghostwire?
I am extremely interested in Ghostwire. It is not a question of if, but when. And this game comes out on March 25th, I believe, which is exactly a month after Elden Ring. So I
Wow.
think it's just going to depend on
Can you do it?
how it's gonna depend on how much I'm still religiously playing that game and how much I feel like making an impulse purchase, instead of just clearing out my backlog some more, so we'll see. I have a feeling this game is gonna be my Returnal, for
Hmm.
2022, because one of the things I loved about Returnal is it just felt so different, something I'd never played before, and just it kept surprising me, and even though I love Returnal just outright, that aspect really added a lot for me. And Ghostwire Tokyo is just the setting itself, it draws me in so much. Like, we got to see so much more of environments, in this trailer, and we saw a lot of enemy designs, and just a lot of, like, really weird, like, cerebral and mind-bending stuff. Like, there was that one corridor that he was walking through at relatively early in the video, and it really you can tell immediately that, Evil Within was their
Right.
previous game going in here, but he's walking through that corridor and it just keeps, like, changing into all these, like, weird, like, almost Lovecraftian kind of
Yeah,
dimensions, and all this,
yeah.
like, stuff's moving and weird things are on the wall, and now, like and the sound design is perfectly integrated with that, so it's kind of like, to me, like, Japanese version of something, like, Lovecraftian? Maybe that's not a good way to describe it. I've been calling it neon occult, is
Right.
my current description of the setting, but I just think it's new and fascinating, and I'm really excited for this game.
Yeah, I think what really reminded me of is the way Dishonored felt. Like it looks
Yeah.
like you have a sort of open-ish environment to be in. Not that it's open world, but you know, you're not in a corridor or something. And
Mhm.
it looks to me like you have a lot of variety in how you can tackle situations. I know they showed like some stealth stuff. I get the impression it's a bit more action focused than something like Dishonored,
Yeah.
which I feel wants to funnel you towards stealth as much as it can. This, to
Mhm.
me, at least in the trailer that they presented, seems like you would be more the action focus. But yeah, a lot of the moves and the effects on them, and my favorite thing to like visually was when, you know, it's one of those first person games where the hands come up and you can just see what your
Yeah.
hands are doing, and when
Yeah.
your character was kind of had those threads coming off the
The
fingers
weaving
and like
threads, the
was
yellow
weaving them
threads.
almost like cat's
Yes.
cradle or whatever that thing is with the elastic bands. To me, that was very,
Yeah.
very cool visually.
That is exactly what I put down as well. Like, that was my biggest takeaway from any of the movesets you have. Like, the magic is really cool, and you've got, like, fire and these, like, charms you're throwing, and it is certainly interesting, but those threads, and when he's pulling on them, like, the tension that they have makes it feel so it looks so weighty. This could be, like, the new God of War catch your axe is, like, pulling on these
Wow,
threads.
now that is, yeah, I don't get the impression that's going to be like um I think that's just like part of an animation. I don't know if you're actually doing that like manually,
Yeah, I just think the animation,
but
just like
mm,
the way he's pulling back on his fingers looks like he's really having to like there's a tension on those threads and he's really having to like, he's got like the strongest fingers, like those little like finger workout things, like he's been doing that.
yeah,
Um,
100%.
but
It's
yeah, I
a
agree. Arcane is definitely something that I studio I thought of, and it reminded me a bit of BioShock as well because there's a lot of like hand animation with the magic in that game. And it kind of reminded me of those 2 blended, but were in, like, neon occult Japanese setting and not,
yeah,
like a
yeah.
Western fantasy.
Yeah, I do want to say I had one thing which kind of was a little bit of a red flag to me, and I'm sure it's nothing. I'm sure it's more so like how the trailer was put together and how it looks. But to me, I just wanted to point out, and I'm sure I must be wrong, but to me, the camera in the game looks a little stiff. The way it kind of
Mm,
turns around, and it just looks kind of like it would be a little bit bulky to control. And this is totally just how I'm basing it based on the visuals of that trailer. But to me, it's like one of the things that I really like about a lot of those first person games, at least some of the more modern ones, is the movement and how you can it's very fluid, right? Where this looked a little bit
mhm.
more like, you know, BioShock is a good example of a game. Like, I wouldn't say the movement feels great in BioShock. It's all the skills
No.
and the setting and everything. And I hope it's not quite that stiff, because I think that's one thing that modern games have really hit. And it's just a little bit of like, ooh, how is this going to feel camera wise and like moving around?
Yeah, that is very fair, and I definitely noticed that your character looks like he's very slow. I'm hoping that it was kind of just a conscious decision to show off more of like the abilities, and so it's the focus on what he's doing with his hands and kind of looking at the world around versus, getting too caught up in other details. So I agree that's a little concern. The other slight concern I have is that the enemies, while I absolutely adore their design, didn't really do anything the whole trailer when you kind of pay attention to them. They sort of, like, were walking menacingly towards you, and then you were throwing all sorts of, like, high level wizard spells at them,
Yeah.
which is certainly, like, that's the showcase and that's cool, but I really hope that, they're just kind of holding off on that and there's a lot more to it. Like, they did throw a couple things at you, and the game definitely said that you have to perfect block, AKA parry things, and so that lit up some big
Oh my
flags
god.
in my brain. But I kinda wanna see just some more of, like, we have a little bit of, like, framework for gameplay, but I'm still not 100% sure what it's gonna
Yeah.
feel like necessarily. Like, are there gonna be boss fights? Like, like, you're gonna be fighting just hordes of enemies, like, there's still a lot of questions, but I think the setting alone is enough to keep me interested. I think the setting and the story and kind of puzzling out, like, what's going on, and I think it's gonna be a very big mystery game, so that alone keeps me interested, and, like, if it is just sort of a spectacle kind of fighting game, I'm not opposed to that,
Yeah. I wonder
but
if
I
it's
do
more
hope there's a
atmosphere
little
focused
more
too.
depth. Yeah.
Because it is like horror-y, right? And I wonder, yeah, the combat,
Mhm.
it seems to be to me like verging a little bit more on spectacle versus like technical
Yeah.
complexity or technical difficulty and stuff. But again, it's just a trailer, right? These are the things like it's where it's dangerous to make snap judgments based on
Mhm.
trailers before you play something because
Well,
it's just so
exactly,
hard.
and, like, I had that with Sifu, like, Sifu came out just the other day, and based on the trailers we saw, I thought it was just, like, an action beat 'em up, but
Yeah.
it turns out it's, like, a gruelingly difficult, like, precision fighter, and I was not expecting that, and so I always thought Sifu looked cool, but I'm really interested in getting this game
Right,
now, and
right.
so
And it's funny because
I
when I heard that, it brought me down a little bit. Not that
Yeah.
I'm still interested in it, and I'm not like put off or anything, but I think it's definitely like
Mhm.
if I'm debating between it and Returnal, I think it's the tiebreaker has now been put towards Returnal to me over
Mhm.
Sifu. I'm just what I'm buying next, you know. Spoilers for maybe 5 or 6 episodes from now,
You should
but
definitely buy
yeah,
Returnal.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, it'll be cool to see. It's not too long till it comes out, so I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the future. Um, Anyway, Kate, we have one more PlayStation story to go through on the episode here before we transition to the Nintendo Direct. And this one is just, it's actually similar to a Direct, just a little bit, quite a bit less exciting. This is the PlayStation Indies announcement that came out via the PlayStation blog a couple days ago, where they just went through. They do this sometimes. I think it's a really weird way to give updates, honestly. Like, why these
I
could just
think
be
they
kind of start of state of play, some of them.
I think it's a recap. I think the idea is that it's not new things. It's just like, hey, here's a reminder of some stuff that's coming up
No,
soon.
it is because on the blog, hi
Is
everyone,
it?
we've lined up 7 indie updates and new reveals we're excited to share with you this morning.
Oh,
So some of them are
interesting.
updates, some of them are new reveals.
I thought it was just a total recap.
Yeah, so that's why it's kind of weird, right? Like I feel like the new reveal ones, put them in a state of play or something, you know, give us something a
Mhm.
bit more exciting than a blog post. Anyway, I digress. So the first thing we got announced was some new information on Moss Book 2, a game neither of us have played because it's PSVR. I know
VR
when and if
title.
I get a PSVR, Moss is definitely a launch title for me, quote unquote, just because it's
Mhm.
got great reviews, people love it. But Moss Book 2 looks, I mean, more of the same, more or less. I think they mentioned the one thing that stood out to me was the environments are bigger this time, so maybe that's expanding on the ideas of the first one. But I think this
Right,
just looks like
or
more
they're a little
quality.
bit yeah, they're a little bit less limited by the technology this time and could do a little bit more with what they've got with in terms of PSVR 2.
Yeah, I don't know if it's
But,
for PSVR
yeah.
2. That's a good question, actually. I
Oh,
think it might be on the
interesting.
PSVR 1. I don't know if any of these are actually announced for PSVR 2, but
Right, I guess we technically don't have that
yeah,
official yet.
yeah. But anyway, I mean, they'd still your logic still works out though. Like they would have learned to develop on the PSVR with Moss, and now they'd have a better understanding of the technology and all that. So it's not wrong. But yeah, Moss Book 2. We had Secrets of the Animal Well coming to PS5. What an interesting looking game that is. This to me was the one that caught my eye the most of the whole announcement, to be honest.
Mhm.
Just because I want to know more about this. It seems so mysterious and Metroidvania like in terms of exploring the layout of the map, but then there's not a lot of combat. They say there's not a lot of really difficult puzzles in there. So what is the gameplay loop? It just seems
Yeah,
very
I don't
mysterious.
this did seem strange to me. I almost thought it seemed like kind of one of those, like, artistic indie games where you kind of do a lot of just, like, moving around through environments and kind of, like, getting some
Mm.
storytelling that way, but it definitely is eye-catching for sure.
Yeah, it's got a kind of an ugly art style, I gotta say. Like, not
But,
to
like,
be mean,
intentionally,
but yeah, that like intentional. And
yeah.
they at the same time, it's pixel art, right? But they say right in the press release of like, it looks like pixel art and whatever, but it's gonna push the PS5 technology in certain ways. And I don't know what that means, but I'm very interested to see what they mean. Like, to me, this could be the kind of game where this is coming out and then it ends up being one of those games that like totally flips or changes partway through and it's unexpected.
Mhm.
Who knows? Like it just looks like something you want to keep up with and see what it is. Next up, we had Master Splinter coming to TMNT Shredder's Revenge, a game which I'm very excited
Mhm.
for after playing Streets of Rage 4. Don't know how much I love Master Splinter. Like, I just want to be the Turtles, but I mean, seeing more of this game looks cool. I just want to see a release date. Like, when is this coming out?
Yeah,
This is this year, right? It's got to
absolutely.
be. Just let me play it, okay? Let me have it. After that, Post Void, they say it blasts its way onto PS5, PS4 this spring. This one is literally like Doom, except you did a lot of drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I put, like, Doom, but you're hallucinating.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I don't think it's my cup of tea, but it's certainly interesting, and I think it'll do well.
God, it looks like a headache waiting to happen for anyone that suffers from
Yeah.
like epilepsy or kind of has gets headaches from different light sources and stuff. I don't know about Post Void for you, but It's yeah, like that's on PC already, so I guess you could already check it out if you want. Kate, upgraded Salt and Sacrifice sequel coming out. Tell me about this. You're a Salt and Sacrifice fan.
Yes. I am super interested for Salt and Sacrifice. It's a sequel to Salt and Sanctuary, which I played, I don't know, last year
It was last
sometime,
year, right?
maybe
Yeah.
maybe 2 years ago. It was great. It's basically like a 2D Souls game, but the twist, what makes it interesting is that you can play it or totally co-op. Um, and yeah, the guy I played the first game with, like we're 100% on board. We're getting this, going through number 2. It's just a ton of fun. I wouldn't say that it necessarily stands out in any particular area in terms of like that genre. Um it's so densely populated these days,
Yeah.
but being able to play it in co-op with kind of the intention of co-op and some interesting co-op mechanics is wonderful. And I think they're playing into that with this second game, which I'm very excited for.
Moving on, we saw Samurai Gunn 2 coming to PS5, and this really gave me vibes of Towerfall. You remember that game
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
you're kind of it's like an arena 2D game, or like something like Nidhogg where you're killing each other in sort of one hit on a screen.
Yeah, but it's like a really fast-paced kind of arcadey action thing, but it definitely has those elements to like get good at.
Yeah, there's a skill
Or
ceiling,
just
right?
play, yeah, there's a skill ceiling. It can be like a chaotic mess depending on the group, or it can be like a really intense, showdown depending on who's playing, so
Yeah,
they're always
yeah.
a ton of fun.
Yeah, and they had crossovers, I think Minute and Spelunky 2 and one other one in there
Mhm.
as well. Who was it? Blanking on this now. Anyway, there's some guest characters in the game. Check it out if you're interested. And finally, a game which I always see on sale on PlayStation and on different storefronts, but I had never had any idea what it was. Hello Neighbor 2 was announced. And so I'm talking about the original Hello Neighbor, obviously. And
Yeah.
you know what? The concept of this game, I always wrote it off kind of being like, oh, I don't really, the thumbnail art style doesn't look great. I'm not going to click on this. This seems like one of
Yeah.
those, Bendy and the Ink Machine kind of horror games that people like to stream and whatever. But the concept actually, I don't know how much you know about Hello Neighbor, but it actually seems kind of cool.
I actually think this game is cool. What's cool about Hello Neighbor 2, and it definitely is 100% like
Did
it
you play
seems
the
like.
first one? Sorry,
I've not
you
played
did.
them.
Okay.
But what's funny and interesting about this game is it definitely seems like one of those, like, I don't know, watch someone on Twitch play kind of games. Like it's like a made for streaming
Hmm.
game.
Hmm.
It seems like, but what's neat about 2 is apparently like, so the premise is, yeah, you're like sneaking into your neighbor's house for unclear reasons. Um and you got to like figure out his secrets. I don't know, maybe he's a villain, maybe you're a villain, I don't know, but the point is that you're sneaking around his house and you're trying to not get caught. So what is interesting about this game is that they're boasting it's got a like neural AI network for the neighbor. So when you're sneaking around his house and, trying to uncover whatever mysteries are there, and, maybe you're going through his underwear drawer, who knows? I don't really understand what you're doing in
He's
here
gonna learn you did that and
necessarily.
remember, and then change where he keeps his underwear.
Exactly, he's gonna start putting them somewhere else, somewhere, but it's kind of an interesting idea, right? And I think in the most simplistic terms, what is supposed to happen is, say, like, you hide under the bed, and he doesn't originally know to check under the bed, but enough players start doing that, then all of a sudden, like, he sees you disappear in the bedroom, and the first thing he does is come in and like, "Okay, I'm looking under the bed, that's somewhere I know that people hide." And that's just really fascinating. I don't know necessarily how well it's going to play out, or if it's even going to be, like, noticeable as a different
Yeah,
form of it being as opposed to it just being, like, kinda coded in that he knows to look all those places regardless. So, I don't know if, like, you'll be able to tell that it feels different than just a game where the neighbor would've been programmed initially
yeah. To
or
me,
not.
what would be a really cool way to do that would be to include voice lines like, "Oh, I know you were here last time. I'm coming for you now." Or
Yeah.
something like that. Like I feel like
Yeah.
dialogue like that would be unexpected by the player would actually make it way scarier than it otherwise would have been because it's almost like the game is learning you.
Yeah, exactly, and so the game is like, yeah, it's like breaking that fourth wall a little bit and kind of bringing it into, like, he's not chasing the player, he's chasing you, and that's really interesting. So Yeah, I don't know how it's gonna work, and I don't think this is a game that I'm necessarily going to play, but I think it's a game I kinda wanna get an update on every now and again and just see, like, how dynamic the neighbor actually is,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's just a neat idea.
It is a neat idea. You just hope they pull it off well. I mean, the game itself
Yeah.
probably will be fun for people who are already looking forward to that anyway, but yeah, I mean, interesting stuff. If nothing else, it's fun to see like what other games incorporate this type of tech and like
Mhm.
how that goes forward. I know, like I was just talking to you off mic before we started recording about I tried a bit of Forza and like the way the drivatars work as far as like um
Mhm.
as far as that stuff is very cool as well. So all right. Anyway, yeah, I guess we'll keep up with Hello Neighbor as it moves forward if you're that interested. But for now, Kate, I think it's time we'll move on to the second half of today's show. And as promised, we have to talk about the Nintendo Direct because there was a huge Nintendo Direct that came out, one of the bigger ones in a while, I would say. And we got a lot of stuff announced, some updates on stuff we know about, other things are, big surprises that have been revealed. Just before we get into it, I guess overall, what were your impressions of the Direct?
I think this direct was absolute fire. I'm a Switch owner. I will admit I don't use it anywhere near as much as I should. Um, and I just love watching Nintendo Directs. Like they're just the most wholesome thing. I find them infinitely charming and appealing. And this direct only had maybe one or two games that I think I realistically might ever buy. But I think overall it was a really good presentation. There was tons of variety, like, you cannot go to this direct and not see something that you're gonna like. Like, they really revealed a lot of interesting stuff, I think.
I'm so with you. I think it was a great presentation. I think it was fun to watch. Like there was no portions
Mhm.
aside from like the only portion that was maybe boring to me was like the MLB the Show one, but that was funny because of the narrator.
Yeah,
Um,
the chain smoker.
and so just like that was funny. But I mean, yeah, I think like if it would be hard pressed for me to envision a world where someone could watch this and be like, well, that was crap,
I think the
unless
only
they were really
person.
looking forward to Zelda and like had their hopes up or
Yeah,
something, right?
exactly. I think that's the only kind of situation you're like, "What?" I
Yeah,
mean, it's like back when there used to be, like, Smash reveals, right? They're like, "What? There wasn't a Smash reveal? This
yeah.
Nintendo Direct is shit." But it's like, "Okay, but they showed, like, 30 other kinda cool things."
Yeah, but
So,
there's the other thing
yeah.
too is like, what are they gonna do? Like, if the game, if Zelda really has gotten delayed, right? Like, as people are speculating now, it's like, okay, well, did you
Oh.
want them to put it in here then, and then have like no release date, and then you're just gonna complain about them not putting a release date and not showing
Yeah,
anything? So
exactly. Our buddy, Nick over at Loud Thumbs, he's called it already. He's the prophet this year, and he's like, "It's not coming out in
that's
2022."
not a
And
prophecy. That's what everyone's saying.
I know. Okay, well, he was like the first person that I had seen say it, so
Oh
I'm
my
gonna give
god,
him at least my
it's like God of
credit,
War. Like, no
and
one
I
actually
agree
thinks
with
God of War
him.
is coming out this year, even though they say
I think God of
2022.
War might.
Oh
I think
god,
God of War is more likely at least. Of the
then
2, I'd
Zelda.
put my money
Hmm.
on God of War.
Oh, I would put my money on Zelda. I don't know. Ooh, interesting. We have a bet. What do you
Interesting,
want to bet? What do you
interesting.
want
We
to
got a
bet?
bet going. Ooh.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Ooh.
We can
We'll
both
figure
pick
it out.
one of the short game for the other person to play, whoever's right.
Alright, deal.
Anyway, let's get into this direct here. We're gonna break it down. We'll just go announcement by announcement, say what we gotta say, move on, and enjoy yourself. Okay, so yeah, first up, Fire Emblem Warriors shows up, and here one of my predictions, Kate, back from our predictions episode, was we were
Mhm.
gonna see a new Fire Emblem revealed this year. It was gonna be modern, futuristic, some sci-fi stuff, and I still stand by that prediction. I still think that could happen for the next Fire Emblem. But this is actually Fire Emblem Warriors, which, as people know, is the kind of Musashi beat 'em up style thing. They're putting Fire Emblem in there. And honestly, like, as much as it's not really for us, we were just talking about Strikers on our last regular episode of this podcast, is, these games are popular. And to me, it feels like just a quick way to, maybe not quick, I don't want to make it sound cheap because it's not like these games are total garbage or anything, but it's like, it's another way to get a beloved game. Like, people liked Three Houses. So why not put those characters in another game that's not a strategy game?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on board with stuff like this. I wish more developers, like, took characters and franchises in, like, many different directions. I just think that variety I know it's kind of controversial. A lot of people are like, "I just like what I like, I don't wanna have to waste, like, one of the games in the franchise coming out on something I'm not interested in," and I understand that perspective as well, but I always think it's just kinda cool to see, like, how they could be reimagined somewhere else,
Sure.
and, like, that's cool. Good for you, Three Houses characters, and, like, Byleth, the worst Fire Emblem character ever now, is in Smash and Fire Emblem Warriors and in their own Fire Emblem games,
Isn't
so, like,
everything?
go Go Byleth, you blank wet
Hey,
paper
you know
towel
what?
of a character.
No one's coming to this game for Byleth. I think this is the game where they're
Yeah.
gonna give, let the other characters' personalities shine. You
Yeah,
can play as the other characters, right?
absolutely,
So
absolutely. Most of
yeah,
the trailer were the 3, actual 3
the
houses
lores, yeah.
characters, and, yeah, and that's super cool.
Exactly. Next up, we had Advance Wars 1-2 Reboot Camp. We've seen this before. I'm so happy this franchise is coming back. Just seeing the reboots of this stuff, it just makes me think like, what else could it be? Mega Man Battle Network one time, like what's it gonna be? But yeah, Advance Wars is cool, and it's the year of the strategy game apparently.
Mhm.
So here we are. It is Advance Wars Reboot Camp. I don't know if you had too much to say about that one, or I don't know if have you played Advance Wars?
I played a little bit of the first one on, a GBA emulator,
Yeah,
so
that's my only experience too
yeah.
is emulating them, and I've only beat the first couple hours like you do. You fall off emulator games and never play them again.
Yeah, 100%. I
And
mean, on my computer, I'm probably playing, an actual game, so
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's kinda tough real estate there.
yeah. Next up, No Man's Sky is coming to Switch, and remarkably, looks like it runs extremely well.
Yeah. It looks awesome. Whatever they did to get it on Switch, I'm impressed, and, other developers be shaking in your boots if this comes out and runs well.
Yeah, it's
'Cause,
impressive,
yeah, it
right?
looks great.
And
Yeah.
it's not even the streaming technology, like they had control on Switch through cloud streaming and whatever. So that's
Mhm.
not even what this is. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I feel like as well, it's a great game for Switch because I could see it being good on the go game. Like you pick up and you do a planet and then you put it aside and then you pick it up and do another little I'm assuming that's the gameplay loop. I don't know how long you necessarily spend on a planet in something like No Man's Sky, but it does seem like something that's just kind of nice to come back to every now and again. And I think that is a really good Switch contender.
I get the impression. Yeah, I think you're right. Speaking of Switch contenders, Kate, speaking of contenders, my game of the presentation, I'm so freaking excited. Mario Strikers Battle League. Strikers is back. Mario Strikers, greatest Mario sports game of all time. It has the greatest art style of any Mario game
Does.
in existence ever.
Does. Some
Ever.
ink comic book panels, it's
Yeah.
just fire.
It is. It has that edginess that Mario doesn't have in any other iteration. I just couldn't be more excited to play this. I hope it turns out well though, because I know Mario Tennis and those Mario Golf that come out recently, they seem to be very shallow in terms of different modes and content. But
Right.
yeah,
So do you
I'm
think you might
stoked for
buy
this.
this game?
Oh yes, I think I will.
Yes.
I will for sure because
Good,
I know.
good.
Yeah,
My dream from watching this presentation was "Ugh, I'm not gonna buy Strikers, but I really hope someone I know buys Strikers because I wanna
yeah.
play it a couple times."
Oh no, I'll be getting this for sure. Unless it
Yes.
completely bombs and is this game is terrible and doesn't work.
Good,
I'm down
okay.
for it. You know.
I owe you. This is wonderful.
Yeah, no problem. Another game I might buy in the future, Splatoon 3 was shown, although unlike the Strikers demo, I'm excited for Splatoon 3, but I found this to be just a really weird video. This barely showed anything new aside from, maybe some really hardcore Splatoon people could pick it out, but they just showed Salmon Run, which is a mode from the original Splatoon. It didn't look particularly different than anything we've seen from Splatoon before. I have no doubt it'll be a quality game, but I'm just kind of what was the point of showing this here other than to say, hey, Splatoon's coming out. Remember this.
I feel like Splatoon 3 or Splatoon just in general is the PG Disney version of a Kojima game because every time they show a trailer, it's just what the fuck happened? They're so weird. And every time I see a Splatoon trailer, I understand it less.
Yeah.
And
That's
yeah.
the funny thing though, is this trailer kind of I've played it makes sense as to what you're doing in the trailer. I just don't know why this was the content in the
Yeah.
trailer
Yeah,
in terms of
because,
showing
the
you about
actual
Splatoon 3.
yeah, the actual gameplay makes sense, but just the world is so, it's just so weird, and I never know how to feel about it. But,
Yeah.
I think this game looks fun. If they ever add couch co-op, I'm in to buy a Splatoon game.
Oh, that's
all
what
they
it
have
needs.
to do for me.
That's what
That's what it
I think
needs.
Splatoon 2 would be a very, very improved game if it had couch co-op. And I think it was good anyway,
Mhm.
but I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta have someone to play with, right? And we're better than on the couch, especially with your Switch. After this, Front Mission First and Front Mission 2 Remake. Strategy games, again, more strategy games. These are remakes,
Mhm.
though these are ground up remakes of some pretty old games. I forget exactly what Front Mission is on. Is it a Super Nintendo game? I really couldn't say. I should have probably paid attention
I'd
to
never
that.
heard of it before, to be honest.
Yeah, but it looked like decent remake for strategy fans. Who's I don't know much about the source material, so maybe this is one we wouldn't really have too much to comment on. But cool to see a revival like this. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are old school Nintendo fans and are pretty stoked to see this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it looked good. It looked genuinely good. Like, I mean, the mech thing isn't always necessarily my cup of tea. Typically prefer some of the more fantasy
Yeah.
variations that we might see coming up soon, but it definitely looks cool. I could see buying like a combo pack in the future when they're on sale or something just to check it out.
Speaking of a game that's well, I mean, Star Wars is kind of fantasy, right? Like it is sci-fi, but it's got some fantasy elements. Whatever. Star Wars Force Unleashed is coming to the Nintendo Switch, and man, this game looked rough. It looked rough. I believe I read online later that this is actually a port of the Wii version of this game.
Okay,
So
that
I
makes
don't
a lot
know.
of sense.
Yeah, I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but that's kind of what I saw going around. So interesting choice. I mean, they're just putting Star Wars everywhere, so why not? I think this game was reasonably popular when it came out, but I just don't know if it looks like it may hold up the best in
I
2022.
I'm going to be honest, this was the portion of my workout where I was doing push-ups. So I didn't see a lot of the trailer. I mostly listened to this one. So I don't know necessarily if I can comment on how it looks. But I definitely heard it was Star Wars and made a mental note to myself to be like, "Ah, well, I should see if my Star Wars friend thinks this is cool."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Next up, coming on. You're an Assassin's Creed fan-ish, aren't you? Ish of the first couple, maybe. I don't
I
know.
really loved the first couple games. I
Well,
was a huge fan of them.
good.
Yeah.
Well, do I have news for you? Because the Assassin's Creed Ezio collection is coming to Switch, and that has been announced as the first. It's the first three games is Ezio, right? 1, 2, and
Uh,
Revelations, or 2,
I
3,
believe
and
it is 2 Revelations and Brotherhood, I
that sounds right.
think?
That sounds right. Now that you
Yeah,
say that, yeah,
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I think this is a cool announcement in terms of like there's a lot of Nintendo fans that probably haven't played Assassin's Creed, and so jumping into this would be a cool experience. These are older games now, of course, but we like these revival packs, they're great for people that want to jump
Yeah.
in.
They're great for people like you said who miss games. Like I know it's not the most exciting thing when, you've been gaming for so long and we own all the different consoles and like yeah, the last time I thought about an Assassin's Creed game was years ago when I played the Ezio games. But it's just super freaking cool. And for the people who are, maybe a little bit younger and never played those games and just didn't really have access to them, like this is absolutely fantastic. And I appreciate it so much when I get a game in this kind of context that I missed the first time around, and now I've got another like Demon Souls, like,
Yeah.
I missed Demon Souls the first time around, I got a, chance Blue Point made it the prettiest game on this earth, and I got a chance to play it in a convenient way, and I adored it, so I appreciate this. They've added some, like, motion controls and just some fun little cute things that are, like, Switch appropriate, which I just think are some nice details as well, regardless of if you want to use them.
Well,
Uh,
sure. It's just
and
enhancing the product, right? It's just
yeah,
it's just adding.
yeah,
I
and
think
I think this is a ton of fun.
I think you make a really good point about the keeping in mind like this may not be for you, but it's very important that it comes out because of
Mhm.
the preservation of digital media and all that. And also, yeah, there's a lot of people like there's a lot of Switch owners right now that were not even old enough to play games back when Assassin's Creed 2 was coming out on the Xbox 360. And so
Mhm.
those new gamers or people who during the pandemic they're like maybe they were around during the 360 era, maybe they were old enough but they just didn't play games, got into the Switch because of Animal Crossing or whatever during the pandemic, and now hey, Assassin's Creed, I've heard a lot about this, a combo pack of 3 of the games that people really liked from the series. It's a great thing to be coming out, and for those people it's like hell yeah, they can experience
Mhm.
something like that, so it's perfect. And speaking of remakes and old games coming out, another one, Chrono Cross the Radical Dreamers is a remake of Chrono Cross, I believe, right? And that is another
Mhm.
huge game back from the PS1 days, which a lot of people again will not have experienced, and now they can quite easily just on the Switch in a upgraded version. I saw some more people online kind of saying this didn't look like the greatest graphically either in terms of the port, but I don't know if I really want to comment on that just because I think a lot of PS1 stuff doesn't look great anyway so much in the modern days. So who's to say? But it's cool to see Chrono Cross coming back.
Yeah, and I think this one too also is coming out with, like, a visual novel that was never released outside of Japan. So that's
Hmm.
also kinda cool if you're a big Chrono Cross fan to, like, pick this up and then also get access to to something that was like region gated. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's an interesting one too, because with Assassin's Creed, it's like if I was a big Assassin's Creed guy, I probably wouldn't buy the collection because I've played them fairly recently, right? Like I could go
Yeah.
back and plug in like my PS3 if I wanted to and play these. But with something like Chrono Cross that is, you know, scary to say, but it is retro now, you know, like PS1, that kind of, it's a little bit older, it's a few more consoles back, and having the remaster, even if I was a fan of Chrono Cross, the original, and if it was one of my favorite games of all time, I feel like picking this up, being like, you know what, screw it, I haven't bought this game for like 20 years. Why
Yeah.
not buy the new version and experience a game that I love again in a modern way? Like that's what I'm gonna do with Dead Space coming out. I guess it's a little different argument because that is a newer game as well. But you know what I'm trying to say is
Yeah,
like it's
I know
cool.
exactly
It's cool.
what you mean, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's get away from the remakes. The next game up was brand new, and boy oh boy, have there been memes about this one. It is Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and the mystery that is full mouth mode, or whatever they call it. I think that's what they call it. But Kirby has some new skills in his pocket, and he's really seemed to have gotten he seems to have gotten the Mario Odyssey glow up almost of like, wow, we didn't expect a Kirby game to kind of be a little bit more in depth, it looks like, than whatever it has been before, and this looks genuinely like quite a good game.
So yeah, I had a blast with this one. So I'm in a at school we've got a board game club, and I'm gonna shout out my school's wonderful club and our wonderful members. And in our Discord, we got different like chat channels, and one of them's a video game chat, and someone posted full mouth mode Carby, and I saw that, and I was like, well, that's hilarious. And that was like kind of the one thing I sort of like had seen coming into watching this direct, and even with the expectation or no, not expectation, the preparation of Carby being real did not prepare me for what I saw in this direct, and I was absolutely blown away. Like Kirby has solidified himself to me as a Lovecraftian monster. Um, he's he's coming to your house with full mouth mode. Nobody's safe. But the craziest part about this trailer, aside from how absolutely wild it is how I kind of want to buy a Kirby
I
game because
know.
it looks so good.
I was gonna say that to you too, and like neither of us are really historically Kirby fans. We both played like maybe one or two.
Crystal Shards was a great game back on N64, but it's been a long time since we were into that game.
Right, yeah, it's been a long time, and this game, like, yeah, the world just seems a lot more compelling, and something about the big mouth mode and being, it's almost like Cappy, right? Like in Mario,
that
getting
is
the different capture
exactly
powers.
what I thought of.
Yeah,
It is like Cappy, and I love how they've got the old power-ups as like or like the old like when you sucked in an enemy and then you got like sword Kirby or like bomb Kirby, like that kind of stuff. I love how they're like kind of like power-ups now that you can just sort of like acquire from that town that gets built. Like I think that's a really interesting way to bring back the old stuff while still keeping it in this new like Mario Odyssey kind of like capture style. So yeah, this game just it looks very interesting to me. And this is the kind of game that makes me really wish that Nintendo did good sales because it's not going to compete. And it comes out on March 25th. So like that's Ghostwire Tokyo Day. Like it's not going to compete with the AAA games of like Elden Ring or Ghostwire or like, you know, getting the new Destiny expansion and like these other games that are quite high priority for me. It's just Nintendo games are wonderful and cute and I love them, but they're not necessarily that same $80 experience for me as a lot of other games are. But if I could buy this on sale in a year or two for like 40 bucks, 100%, like it just looks so charming.
Yeah, I agree with you pretty much completely. I do think this, like, it's not that the Nintendo games aren't worth the 80 bucks. It's just that they're not worth it to me because I'm not primarily a Nintendo gamer. And that's why we do a PlayStation show and not a Nintendo show. But hey,
exactly. And that clarification is important. Like I bought my Switch, I bought Odyssey new and had an absolute joy with it. Like I own some Switch games, I love them, but it's not my first preference.
Yeah. Same here. But yeah, it looks a lot better than expected nonetheless. Like my interest in Kirby has always been historically very low, like we said. This has got my eye on it. Like I said, like you said, if there's a sale, you never know. Although one game I know I definitely will not be buying on Switch, not only because I can get it for free on Game Pass, not only because if I didn't want to play it for free on Game Pass, I could buy it on PlayStation with a much better running version, but it is MLB The Show 22. And you know what? For as much as we're bagging on it, it is cool that it's coming to Switch. You know, like this was historically a PlayStation exclusive game for the better part of a decade. And then now it's on Xbox, it's on Switch. It's just cool to see it, going around because people like MLB The Show. But what really stole this presentation was not the game. It was, in fact, I don't know who it was or what it was almost like a Steve Buscemi kind of voice.
A Muppet? I don't know.
Yeah, it was weird, but
it
was a very strange narration.
Someone who really needs to lay off the cigarettes narrated this trailer.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, it was wild. I was in the other room, like I said, or alluded to earlier. I was kind of working out while I was watching this, and I was doing I was kind of in the other room just getting some more workout equipment, and I heard this voice from the room. I was like, What Nintendo trailer is this?
I have to see what this is. What have they done to Kirby?
Kirby? What have you inhaled?
And now, for the first time, Kirby with voice acting. Like it's that voice.
Full mouth mode. How many? His Kirby's poor throat. To be fair, the amount of things that guy inhales, like he's probably got a sore throat from time to time. So
he's so malleable. He's so malleable, you know. Like he can swallow swords, fire, ice. Doesn't matter. Fuck it. After the MLB The Show hilarity that ensued, we got a remake for another classic game that people really love back from the PS2 days. It's Klonoa, the Fantasy Reverie Edition. And I had never really played Klonoa or known what he was, but it's a character, like, now that we see him in this trailer, like, I've seen this guy. He's got a very Sonic the Hedgehog type of vibe. I know this guy. And
Billy Rancher? Is that the other guy?
Oh, Billy Hatcher. Billy Hatcher, yeah.
I remember that guy too.
Yeah, totally. So there's this guy coming back. It's another one of those mascot kind of platformers. Very cool stuff for people. Apparently, like I didn't really see anyone kind of bagging on this. This seems like people are excited to have this back, whether or not it's kind of like the hype of seeing something from, the nostalgic lens, and then you kind of cool off and don't end up playing the game or not remains to be seen. But revivals like this, always cool.
Yeah, that's basically my takeaway. It's like, I'm not going to get it. It doesn't do anything for me. I don't know who this guy is. Maybe if I'd play this instead of Crash, but
right.
It's cool.
Right. Another game we played that is very cool, Portal Companion Collection, comes to Switch for the first time. Look, everyone listening to this show will have heard of Portal, one of the best games ever made. All we have to say is if you've not played Portal, and this is your only way to do so right now, just buy this collection when it comes out and you're going to have a great time.
Yeah, play Portal on a potato if you have to. Like, Portal is a historic moment in gaming. I would bet my life that it holds up just as well as the day that I played it. Portal is an experience that everyone, even people who don't normally play tons of games, would enjoy. I think Portal was actually, when we did that gaming quiz, and we had one of our questions of like, what game would you make someone play if they don't normally play games as like an introductory game? And I put Portal because it's just like a really amazing puzzle game, and it is hilarious and charming, and it's just such an experience to go through. It's so unique, and there's been nothing like it since.
Except for Splitgate, which is very different and kind of a joke, but also kind of like Portal. Anyway, next up, we had Live Alive, or Live Alive, or I don't know how to say this, but it is a remake, another remake of an old JRPG. I believe it's from like the NES or something, but it's been remastered in that 2D, 3D art style, similar to Octopath, or spoilers for a little bit later, Triangle Strategy, which is like, it's got to be one of the best art styles going out there right now, in my opinion.
It's so nice. It's so good, and I love seeing like JRPGs and Switch games take it on, because the Switch, like, we're not going to beat around any bushes. It's not the most powerful console that's out there right now, and part of that, it's a handheld. It shouldn't be expected to live up to.
It's also 5 years old.
It's doing right. It's 5 years old. Yeah, it's got some limitations there, but this is an art style it handles so well. It looks gorgeous. Like, I'm 100% on board with kind of taking games in this direction. And Live, I don't think I'm going to play. My JRPG days are unless, aside from a few stragglers, they're behind me. But this game is beautiful, and it's probably very exciting for some people.
Speaking of exciting for some people, did you ever think that we would see the return of, I know it's called Nintendo Switch Sports, everybody, calm down. It's Wii Sports. Did you ever think we would see the return of Wii Sports in the year 2022? because
You
I
know, it's
didn't.
something I hadn't thought about, but now that I do think about it, like, where has it been? Wii Sports was so big, right? Like, what's
Well,
going on? I know
Wii
we had
Sports
Wii
Resort came out,
Resorts, right?
and
But,
then
like, where is the Switch Wii Sports game? Like, how has it been this long and they haven't had one?
I feel like it was snipper clips, right? Like they didn't do Wii Sports because it was Wii Sports, and so then they changed it and they had like that snipper clips or whatever. 1-2 Switch came out. Those were
One
kind
to
of
Switch,
similar-ish,
come
but
on.
and now they're here. They've made the right choice. They've come back. Was worried not to have seen golf in the trailer because that was easily the best game on
It's
Switch
okay,
Sports,
golf
but
is
it's okay.
coming.
It's coming. It's coming.
It's coming.
And we have some other fun games. Volleyball looks like it might be kind of cool.
Volleyball looks like the new big star to me, like, maybe a slight bias because their little volleyball demonstration was the
It was so
quintessential
endearing.
It was the quintessential Nintendo Direct moment, and it was adorable. But it genuinely looks fun, like, you have to do, like, the bumps and sets
Yeah.
and, like, you're blocking with your arms up, like, I can't wait to play this with my 6'6" friends,
Oh,
and see how
but
I do.
that's the thing though. Like, does it really matter? Because you're just playing with
I
the
mean,
Joy-Con. You can just sit on the couch the same way you could play Wii Sports if you really
yeah, but,
wanted.
like, come on. Nobody's bored sitting on the couch playing Wii Sports. Get up
Like
and move around. It's
maybe this is the one element or the one area in your life where you could play volleyball and you could block your 6'6" friends because the height doesn't really matter. You know, maybe you could have that power fantasy that some people like in
Oh,
video games.
I'm gonna be honest, that is, like, at least 50% of the reason I wanna pick this game up,
Yeah. Oh
is to
man.
just absolutely dunk on them. But yeah, it looks amazing. I wanna get this game. Wii Sports is just an absolute blast. I like, and I'm worried about my living room furniture that we've got some soccer kicking action. If you get the Joy-Con strap to attach it to your leg, I think that's fun. My one negative with this game is I really think badminton is a bad call,
Oh
and
yeah.
not because badminton's not a great sport. It's probably in my top 5 sports that I would just like to go outside and play at any given time.
Okay.
I'm a big proponent of badminton in general, but you've got tennis and you've got volleyball, and those are just, like, more advanced versions of what the badminton play looks like. And I just
Sure,
don't
sure.
see what badminton's bringing to the table that the other 2 are
I'll
not,
tell you what it
and
is. It
okay,
was easy to implement because it was in the first one. So they didn't have to put as
okay.
much effort into remaking it, and so they probably just were like, you know what? Why take it away?
I guess so, but I'm just thinking, like, where's the boxing? Where's my Wii
Right.
Sports boxing? And,
Well,
like,
yeah.
what if that was there instead of
If it was a
badminton?
choice between the two of them, if the decision
Yeah.
was, hey, we got to pick one of these two, and then they picked badminton, yeah, bad choice. If that was the way it went down, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
Will you
I'm
buy this
sure you're
game
right.
for full price? Is that question? Because you were just saying about how Nintendo games before, like I'm surprised to hear you say that Switch Sports is the one that you want to get. You know?
I mean, I'm there's definitely a big element of me just, absolutely joking around, but at the same time, like, if a group of friends wanna come over and have a couple drinks and do some Wii Sports tournaments, I am not gonna deprive us of that evening of fun, and I think it really depends on what the social crowd is looking like for this
Right.
game.
Okay. Well, all I'm saying, Kate, right here and right now on the podcast for everyone to hear is that if you are interested in buying Switch Sports for a fun drinking night of games, then I might bring over that Mario Strikers Battle League that I buy, and we can have an extra good night
Oh.
hanging
Right,
out. So
right.
anyway, we got a lot to go through here still. So let's
Yeah.
I know we got a lot to say here about triangle strategy, which is the next thing. Or maybe we don't, because I mean we have talked about this on the show before. It was just shown off. They've got a demo coming out as of I mean, it's out now if you're listening to this podcast
Yeah.
when it's been released. And you can play the first 3 chapters of Triangle Strategy, and your save will carry over to the full release later next month. And I don't know if you decided to do it or not. I know you were kind of toying around. I've decided not to. I know this is a day one for me. And so I'm just gonna wait and play it all back to back there when it comes out. But what about you? Are you gonna dive into the demo?
I have downloaded the demo, I have not started it. I think I'm gonna pull the trigger on this one because I won't be buying Triangle day 1.
Mm,
It's definitely a game I intend to play. We've talked about it before, and I think maybe I'll save it more for, going over the demo on an upcoming episode, but it's basically Divinity meets Final Fantasy Advanced Tactics meets like political intrigue, social sim,
Yes, yes.
and like if it works on paper, this game is a 10 out of 10. It will remain to see how well it works, but I like the direction of it, and I'm gonna give this demo another try and see how quickly that convinces me to buy the full game.
Right. Okay. Keep us updated. After this, a hugely unexpected piece of DLC was announced. And man, this is how you do DLC. This is Metroid Dread free update, which is coming out. I don't know when. I think it's late in April or something like that, early April.
Yeah, April it said.
And they are announcing a bunch of stuff for Metroid Dread. So catching everyone up for those PlayStation fans that are not up on the Nintendo stuff. Metroid Dread, first 2D Metroid game in a number of years. Critically, people have really liked it, although they're saying, it's very difficult, off-putting for some people. And I agree, it's not an easy game. I really enjoyed it, but I definitely think there is room for some settings and tweaks in there. And so this free update, first of all, Dread mode, difficulty. You die in one hit playing this mode. And let me tell you, how the fuck are you going to do that? I can't believe people can do that kind of thing. It's amazing. But that's a really cool mode for those who are like, very skilled players at Metroid. They're also putting in a rookie mode. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, and just to context that, like, I like hard games. Like, absolutely,
Yeah.
I'm down for hard games. I'll never play Dread
Oh
mode.
God,
Like,
no. Oh my God.
no.
It's unreal. Anyway, they're putting in also rookie mode difficulty, which I think just, I don't know what exactly it does. I think it might increase your health pickups a little bit just to give you that little extra survivability. So I don't anticipate it'll make the game like easy, but I think it'll be that push a lot of people are needing to get past some of the stuff they're stuck on, which is a great option. Happy to see that. And then that's out as of now. And luckily, later in April, what we're talking about before too, what I was really hoping to see out of DLC for Metroid is a boss rush mode, because those bosses are so fun to play. And that's the kind of mode for me that's like, out of the three of these, that's easily the one I'm going to check out. And I'm excited to do that in April as well. It'll be a nice reason to check back in with Metroid after I've been apart from it for a few months after completing it. But yeah, cool DLC. Cool that it's free.
Absolutely. A lot of respect for that. And it's just I feel like that's a lot of community feedback as well. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, like I mean we'll never know, but I feel like it's not necessarily something that they originally had planned, or at least like maybe dread mode is the one thing I
Yeah.
could see, or maybe the boss rush, but especially like the easy mode, I don't think that was initially a consideration that they had. So it's cool to see them potentially taking some feedback and just not only just putting it out but also giving it as a free update. So
Especially
that's
from
awesome.
Nintendo too, right? They're the company that's always like, hey, you remember that game we haven't talked about for 7 years? Like, here's some DLC for it, the Mario Kart for later. Anyway, next up, Earthbound is coming to the Nintendo Switch Online. Not much more to say about that other than always nice to see them put games people really want on the online service. It's, just adds value. Earthbound, obviously, arguably a lot of people's best game of all time. And from what I've played of it, I've played about halfway through. It's a great game. Really enjoy Earthbound. Great RPG. Speaking of DLC though, Kate, we were talking about with Metroid and games from, long time ago getting new DLC. We have the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Edition DLC coming out with 48 remastered courses from previous Mario Kart games, including Mario Kart, whatever that one on the phone is that apparently is getting counted in as well.
Yeah.
Apparently some tracks from that are coming to this as well. And so, I'm a huge Mario Kart fan, as people talked about. It's arguably one of my favorite Nintendo franchises. And I've been so looking forward to Mario Kart 9. Mario Kart 8 was on the Wii U, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has been, a Switch basically launch title. It's been around forever. Where is Mario Kart 9, right? You wonder if this was supposed to be part of Mario Kart 9 and the offering there, and if, the pandemic's delayed it or not, or a Mario Kart 8, from the other hand, is still such a high-selling game. Like, it just sells like billions of copies, and so in my mind, I'm like, if this was going to be DLC for Mario Kart 8, why is it coming out so late compared to, like, it could have been 4 years ago before the pandemic and, they would have made millions of dollars. Regardless of all of that, how you want to break it down, I'm just excited to be getting 48 new Mario Kart tracks, regardless of what game they're for. Great news. And, honestly, the price point on this, $25, it's a pack like the Mario pack. They're not all going to come out at once. It'll be like staggered releases, but for the price they're charging for this, you're basically getting more tracks than would be coming in a new Mario Kart game in this DLC, and I think it's going to be totally worth it. Mario Kart 8 is an amazing driving game in terms. I think it's the best Mario Kart's ever been. Couldn't be happier.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I wonder as well too that the reason there is no Mario Kart 9 is they just don't have the next, like, big push for it. Like, what would be different in Mario Kart 9 than Mario Kart 8 that justifies it being a new game as opposed to just keep adding new things to Mario Kart 8? And I
I
wonder if maybe
guess, but I
that's
mean
why it's a
that's
DLC.
been the first 8 Mario Karts though. Like they've all been
Yeah,
like that. I don't
I
know.
know, but
To me,
maybe it's so much less work to
yeah.
just keep it in the same format, right?
Less
So,
work for sure. Less work for sure. I
yeah.
wonder if it's just one of those things of like, hey, you know what? Screw it. It's been so long now. Our plans have been derailed, like the pandemic going on, all that stuff. Let's just release these courses now, and then whenever the next Nintendo console comes out, that's when we get Mario Kart 9. Because it historically has been one Mario Kart per console. Even like the handheld
Right.
consoles have had their own. Like
And
this is the
Mario Kart.
first,
Yeah.
I think, to my knowledge anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong. Email it circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com because I'm not going to go look it up. But is the Switch the first Nintendo console that does not have its own Mario Kart? It's not a re-release like this. I
Since
think it is, right?
since Mario Kart came out,
Well, of
because
course, yeah, not
yeah,
like the
of
NES and
course,
stuff,
with
but
that caveat, like
super first one on Super Nintendo. Is
yeah.
this the first Nintendo console, barring like game or some weird Game and Watch handheld thing that doesn't have it, like a new
Game& and
console?
Watch. Yes, I want someone to write it. Well, the
Yeah.
Game& and Watch handheld didn't have one.
I would just reply back to that email. Okay, nice. Anyway, yeah,
That's awesome. Respect.
respect.
But yeah, to my knowledge, you are correct. And that's weird. And like you said, like yeah, the Switch is kind of getting older now. Like maybe they are going to hold off on it for the next console and just not worry about throwing it out at the very end. But
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I think like if I am okay with DLC packs forever for Mario Kart 8 unless they have like a big idea for 9 that changes stuff
Yeah, yeah.
because it's what's going to be different. And I think if they're going to be throwing anything into Mario Kart, they need a double dash mode.
Well, what I think now, and what I've kind of seen some of the discourse online is like, hey, you know what? The next Mario Kart's just going to be Mario Kart 10, and like they're
Mm.
going to count 9 because apparently, like someone was saying on a podcast I was listening to the other day that if you go on Nintendo's site, they have like all the Mario Kart games listed in order, and the phone one is presented in a way as if it is 9. It's
Oh,
just
as if
not
that's
like put out.
9.
So now the thought is like, hey, they're just gonna put like Mario Kart 10 on whatever the next Nintendo console is,
Right.
and that one will be like the platform Mario Kart that's like Smash-ified and has all the different characters and all that stuff. Who's to say?
Right.
But whenever that Mario Kart does come out, because we know we're gonna get it, I can't wait. But until then, these courses will do it for me just fine. Anyway, last thing that was shown at the Nintendo Direct, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And this is a huge announcement, folks. This is one of the biggest JRPGs out there right now, like Xenoblade, Persona, Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy. These are the names in RPGs for RPG fans. And so Xenoblade 3, huge announcement. So happy it's finally being shown. And it's a franchise for someone that loves that genre. It's one I've actually not played. So I really need to pick up a Xenoblade and give it a go before this, because this is definitely it looks incredible. Like we want to talk about No Man's Sky looking nice on the Switch. Like this game has some graphics and it looks very impressive, and by all accounts is just an amazing RPG franchise.
Yeah, I think you hit on that, at least for me. Like, not a franchise I'm familiar with. It's not a franchise I see myself getting into. But yeah, it looks great on the Switch. I kind of look at this and I'm like, oh, I wish Legends Arceus looked like this. It's kind of my
Yeah,
takeaway.
sure. Different teams though, like
Um,
Monolith Soft
Different
versus,
teams
yeah.
and yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of variables that go into it. But some of the character designs are cool. I my biggest takeaway here actually, if I'm being serious, is I like the character design a lot more.
Mm,
Um, Basically all I knew about 2 was how controversial the characters were in
right,
terms of just how outrageously sexualized all of the female characters were, to the point where when Pyra and Mithra came to Smash, they actually like altered their clothing and their
right.
outfits to put them into Smash, which that's an
It's
interesting
not a
detail
good.
at the
What does it
very
say
least.
about your character designs when you have to do that, right?
Yeah, and it's just that to me was a bit off-putting, but these characters genuinely look cool. It's a little less, like, steampunky, I think, too, have that kind of, like, yeah, more a little more technology feel to it, whereas this is a little bit more like I guess it's not old. There is still some like very modern, futuristic kind of jackets, but it's got like kind of a more feudal Japanese thing going on at the same time. And some of these characters genuinely look really cool. So I have some respect for Xenoblade for kind of changing directions that way.
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah.
again, it's just my RPG days or my JRPG days are behind me, and I can only just hope that people enjoy this and it does
There
well.
you go. Well, you know, I hope they do too, because if they don't, it'll be a huge letdown. I know this is very, very anticipated. So hope it turns out good. And you know what? There's something to be said for being able to be the last thing shown at a direct, and then the discourse on the internet not being, wow, that was terrible. So, you know,
Or wow, that wasn't X.
yeah,
Yeah.
or that, wow, that wasn't something else. So I know there was a little bit of that, like, oh, it wasn't Breath of the Wild, you know, like it wasn't Zelda or New Mario or something, but you know, it is a game that is huge for Nintendo. And so power to you, Xenoblade. And thanks for not being so overtly sexual. I agree. A lot of RPGs, almost all Japanese developed RPGs need to improve on that. Xenoblade, no exception. Anyways, Kate, wow, my mouth is getting dry. We have had a long news show. Usually this is a shorter, like we try to keep the news like 30 to 40 minutes. And this is just, how can it be helped? You know, we had the Bungie thing, Nintendo Direct. There are always exceptions when you get this stuff or a state of play or something. And so, yeah, it's been good to talk about all this stuff. But before we get out of here for the news episode, we always close out with a sort of feel good kind of fun story. And this one, I mean, it's not a fun story. It's about like, you know, hacked Switches getting sold and a big lawsuit going on. But there is a news story that just came out a couple days ago. I'm reading from Nicole Carpenter at Polygon. The title is Nintendo Suing Bowser Over Switch Hacks. Bowser, you say? You mean Bowser the Koopa? No. Oh, you mean Doug Bowser, the guy that, you know, is in charge of Nintendo of America now that Reggie's gone? No, not him. Nintendo of America filed a lawsuit Friday against one Gary Bowser, the reported leader of a hacker team, executor. Basically, this team that he runs is they sell like copyrighted Switch hardware, you know, illegal hacking tools and stuff, and they're profiting essentially off of a lot of what Nintendo makes. And so he's been charged with felonies and arrested, and so that's probably a good thing. But you know, shout out to you, Gary Bowser, for having the the wherewithal to hack a Switch and get involved with Nintendo.
Gary Bowser. What a hilarious name. Do you think that in any way motivated him to to take Nintendo down like this?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I feel like Bowser is a villain in the Mario universe, and so this guy was just a villain in real life, and he was living up to his name. The question for me is like, did he do this as retribution for not being named the you know, the head of Nintendo of America, like Doug Bowser? You know, this is Gary Bowser. He's feeling quite upset about Doug's promotion, and so
you know what this reminds me of, and it's really funny. There's a joke in like I don't maybe it's like a lot of communities are all over the internet, but it's always like something I see in FromSoft games where it's like, "Oh, there he is, John Dark Souls," and like as if that's the character's
yeah.
name, is like the main character John Dark Souls, and like I've seen some people joke around. They're like, "Oh man, it's only 13 days till like Johnny Elden Ring comes out," and this reminds me of that. It's like, "Oh, there's Gary Bowser."
Oh my God! Well, I was just over.
That's just a Nintendo thing.
A little bit of a plug here at the end of the show. I was actually just on the Loud Thumbs podcast, the movie reel, reviewing their movies. We've both been on there, of course. Me and Nick over there reviewed the Mario Brothers movie, the live action movie back from like 1993. And so in that movie, it is canonically revealed that the Mario Brothers names are Mario and Luigi Mario. And so maybe Bowser's name is just Gary Bowser, and people just call him Bowser. You know?
Gary Bowser. Of all the things that his first name would be, I would never expect.
I wouldn't have picked Gary, but you know, yeah. God, yeah. What a news show! This has been fun. If you've enjoyed the show, guys, and if you like our content, you know, if you think his real name is Gary Bowser and you're right there with us, we'd like to hear about it.
Or if you know what it really is. If you've got a better idea. Gary, if you really think it's Louis Bowser and you've got a compelling argument for that.
Yeah, you let us know. You can get in touch with us in a lot of places. We're over on Twitter is the easiest way to get in touch, at C&S Pod. Of course, it'll be in the link below. You can find us on all the platforms we are released upon over there. Of course, if you would like to be part of the show, of our regular show, you can write into circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com, where we answer listener mail every time on our regular show, again, which will be out next week, for the games we're playing, and any kind of gaming questions, comments, concerns you have. What are your opinion on any of these news stories? What is Bowser's real first name? Will you buy the Mario Kart DLC? Why was boxing not in Switch Sports? There's just so much to write in about. So let us know your opinions on this stuff and get in touch. And until next time, until then, we'll see you next week. Happy Triangle Strategy demoing, everyone. We'll see you then.